Well, I got to tell you, it has been a month. Whew, what a month. So many things happened, and actually it all began back with the COVID thing. When we came out of that, we looked at some things differently, decided what we wanted to keep and what we wanted to let go. Free range Texan is kind of what Kenny Maynes said to me. He said, I've been listening to your podcast. He says, it's just a labor of love. He was right. I got a message from my dear lifelong friend ever since Boy Scouts, Stan Troy, singer, songwriter, and a great all-around Texan. Stan has been on our Free Range Texan podcast twice with his music. Stan let me know, and I know he won't mind if I share with you, that he has now been diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. I know many of you will be grieved to hear that. Truth is, Stan has been, for a long, long time, one of my very best friends. And there were many, many years we weren't even in touch. But social media brought us back together again. You know, it reminds me of something. When you get news like that about a dear old friend and it just kind of punches you in the heart. And you feel so helpless to know what to do. Just pray. That is probably the single most powerful thing anyone can do for anyone. That being said, I'll tell you, I used to ride cross-country motorcycles. That used to be my big deal. Find the next new big open expanse of desert wilderness and cross it. We had an old saying then about riding motorcycles in the desert. And that is, you just focus on the ground in front of you. Because when you don't, when you start looking around and not paying attention, the next thing you know, you're flying off a 30 or 60-foot gully and it's going to hurt. Focus on the ground in front of you. Well, the truth is, I have enough metal lodged in my legs now to hold things together with pins and busted up shoulders and ribs. And truth is, I don't feel like maybe I should ride anymore, and I haven't for years. But I never forgot that phrase, because some days you just need to focus on the ground in front of you. I found myself doing that a lot this month. Just focus on the ground in front of you. Just know that we care about you, and we appreciate you listening. The world seems kind of crazy looking at it from here in West Texas, but nonetheless, you can count on a brand new Free Range Texan podcast on the first of each month, and maybe a little bit of an escape. Other than that, my advice to you is focus on the ground in front of you. And let's move forward. The following is an A-Team PR production.
Welcome to the Free Range Texan podcast. We're kind of an escape hatch for everyday life. We know today's world has issues. Maybe that's just all the more reason to spend some time. So saddle up with a bunch of Free Range Texans. Here's one now. Our host, Michael Sean.
Free Range Texan, episode 60. With a big howdy, y'all, as we push this one out on the World Podcast Tarmac. We put together some good stuff. Our special guest has turned out to be a true delight, all the way from Canada. Shimmer Johnson brings her music and visits with us, and we discovered a number of intriguing things about this young lady that, well, by the end of the interview, we found ourselves really enjoying ourselves and enjoying our new friend. I think y'all will feel the same way. Another thing about this episode 60 is we are really gonna open the lid on what we have as our new project at 18PR, and we're proud to tell you about it. We are going to work with people who have that what if feeling. What if you produced your own podcast? I know. There's all these things that, well, like what about the music, the non-published music, and who's going to help you get the intros and outros together, and who puts it all together, and how do you get it up worldwide, and how do you promote your podcast? And listen, it's a ball. And if you're thinking about that, we may have just what you're looking for. It's easier and costs less than what you might think. And so we are opening it up to the public. And that's anywhere in the world. It's a neat concept. We'll mention it here on the podcast. But really what you need to do is go to freerangetexan.net, where there'll be an entire page dedicated to just that when you land there. So there's all the regular stuff, the blog and the podcast and all of that. But if you're thinking about producing your own podcast, you should talk to us before you do anything else. We might enlighten you in some fun ways. Foxy the Wonder Dog, our chief of security. Foxy is always on duty. She's around here somewhere. She always is. Foxy back there? No? Oh, let me tell you what you do. You get one of those double stuffed Oreos from off the table in the green room in there, and you set it by the back door. She'll be back in no time. Trust me. When you run the big show, folks, you have to know how to communicate with your people. Or, dog. Michael Sean's Campfire. It's a heck of a story. We're going to revisit a true story that happened in the life of Wild Bill Hickok. And it all took place in Abilene back in the day. That's all coming up. I guess we ought to saddle up and get ready to ride. You're listening to the best little podcast in Texas, the Free Range Texan. Time now for another segment of the Free Range Talent File. Brought to you by 18PR, bringing a host of creative media production and public relations services to our exclusive list of clients. Maybe you could hire the A-Team. And now, here's the next segment of the Free Range Talent File. We've run across a young lady who likes to write songs and make recordings living in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. She's special. And here she is, Shimmer Johnson, with her song Toy Soldiers on the Free Range Texan podcast.
Step by step, heart to heart, left, right, left, we all fall down like toy soldiers. It wasn't my intention to mislead you. It never should have been this way. What can I say? hard to wake up in the morning. My head is spinning constantly. How can it be? I was so blind to the action. If I don't start, the next one's gonna be me. Only emptiness remains. It replaces all the pain. Step by step, heart to heart, left, right, left, we all fall down like toy soldiers. And bit by bit, torn apart, never win, but the battle wages on for toy soldiers. Only emptiness remains. It replaces all the pain. Step by step, heart to heart, left, right, left, we all fall down like toy soldiers. And bit by bit, torn apart, never win, but the battle wages on like toy soldiers. Step by step, heart to heart, left, right, left, we all fall down like toy soldiers. And bit by bit, torn apart, never win, but the battle wages on like toy soldiers. Like toy soldiers.
Shammer Johnson, welcome to the Free Range Texan podcast.
Thanks for having me.
You don't exactly live nearby here in West Texas. You are from
I
Edmonton,
absolutely do not.
Edmonton, Alberta. And did you grow up there?
Yeah, I grew up in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. I was born here, and my parents had split up when I was like 3, but my dad retired in Branson, Missouri, so I ended up moving there when I was 15 and did my high school with the Osmond second generation. I went to school with Scott Osmond and graduated with David Osmond.
No kidding.
Yeah, so, it was pretty awesome. I worked at a grocery store there and was a cashier, and Charlie Pride's family would always come in. It was a good teenage setting for me because it was completely different than the big city that I grew up in, right? So,
And you got to be a hometown girl there as you were growing up.
a little bit, yeah.
That's always better.
I love the city. I would live in New York. I like really busy cities.
Yeah. Yeah.
They
And
do, yes.
It's neat that you were there and spent some time, logged some time there. The thing about Branson, I think, is that you get to meet these remarkable entertainers, most of which kind of from the last generation, but it's people that you would have never gotten a chance to meet and learn from.
I even got to meet Bob Hope when he was there.
Holy smoke.
It was right before he passed. I was 16, and my stepmom, Shirley's like, you have to meet this person. He's in town, and his name is Bob Hope, and I want to meet him. And I had no idea who Bob Hope was. But I got to meet him, and then I learned the history, like, probably years later of who he really was, because she told me a little bit about it. But it was really neat. Now that I look back, I was like, my stepmom gave me a really cool gift. So I thank Shirley for that, for sure.
You are probably one of the only people we have ever interviewed that actually met and enjoyed visiting with Bob Hope. Everybody knows Bob Hope, but very few people ever got to meet him like that. And you're right, that's a neat deal.
You know, looking back, I was like, that's pretty awesome.
Hey, you say, what'd you say your name was?
Pretty much. I was 16, you know, young and dumb. It's all good.
Oh, wow, man. Okay, so you got started somewhere it kicked in that you wanted to write music and record music and perform music. When did all that happen?
Music's always been my thing. I've been singing since I was a little girl. My dad was in a country band, and before my mom and dad split up, we used to do lots of like family singing on the weekends, and I'd always been a singer. And then when I moved back to Edmonton with my mom and my brothers, you know, there wasn't a lot of opportunity. I grew up in a really low-income family with my mom, single mom, and in Edmonton, big city. So there wasn't a lot of opportunity. So at 12, I got like a job myself and get enough money to buy myself some singing lessons. I bought 3 lessons. That's all I could ever afford. And
okay.
Basically, I did it because I wanted to learn how to breathe. I was a really big Mariah Carey fan.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be able to hold that note that she does in Without You. She holds it for like 37 seconds or so.
Yeah.
And I was able to learn the breathing techniques from the teacher, and I practiced them every day, and I was able to hold the note for 28 seconds, which was pretty awesome. And I would use that song and Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You song for competitions, and I joined everyone I could. At 18, I started listening more to like the rock stuff, so I joined like a cover rock bands, and we did lots of 80s stuff. We also did lots of Gwen Stefani.
Yeah.
And when she was in No Doubt, we did all her No Doubt music. And
all of that sounds just like you. What I mean is the only other time you and I have ever visited was just for a few minutes the other day on the telephone. And you began relating me the story of how you, all the way over there in Alberta, heard about an important or seemingly important little workshop going on in Los Angeles, California, here in the United States. And you just decided whatever it took, you were going to get on a jet and you were going to be there and be in the room for people who aspired to be in the music business, to learn a little bit about the business of the music business is what I took from it. And you did that, and you spent 3 days in that room, and you paid your expenses in and out. And that told me something, that there is a commitment here that is not somebody just going around town saying, I'm going to be a big star someday, but you were going to do whatever it took to learn what you needed to learn to be who you decided to be. And that told me everything I needed to know about you. And I'm hearing that now again today.
Well, basically, it was like, it was on a Reverb Nation, like I told you the other day, Reverb Nation. And I had got an email, and they had given me a discount on this like networking thing in LA. So I decided to go to LA and with my co-writer, Corey, and we both went down there, and the networking thing ended up being in this really crappy little bar in North Hollywood. And so we walked upstairs to the bar, and we're like, I don't know what the hell this is. And my Corey's like, well, he's like, oh, we should just leave then. I'm like, no, let's see what it's all about.
Oh, you came all that way. Yeah.
We came all the way. We've already paid for it for 3 days. Let's just do it. You know, it's only for during the day, and then we'll go enjoy LA at the night, right, after the networking thing.
Sure.
But it was really cool. So the first day we were just sitting there, and we're like, oh, this is going to be dumb. And then all of a sudden, people from the players from Earth, Wind, and Fire started walking in. And
why?
writers that have worked with big artists like Celine Dion and Martika walked in, and I happened to be doing a show later that year, opening up for Glass Tiger. I was doing a whole 80s set in Fort McMurray, Alberta, and I was doing the song Toy Soldiers, and Michael J. was one of the presenters at the networking thing. So, Corey like pushed me a little bit, and he's like, you know what? He's like, just go and talk to him. You have an excuse to talk to him. You're singing his song in September, so just go talk to him. It's, what's the worst that can happen? Just go say hi. Yeah, so I end up going chatting with him, and he's like, yeah, here's my card. He's like, send me a video of you singing the song. I'd love to hear you singing Toy Soldiers. I think that would be really cool. I'm like, awesome. So I took his card and I sat down and I emailed him 3 of my original songs. I just sent him Pride, Don't Break Me, and Getaway. I sent him those 3 songs just because at the time that's the songs that I had finished. So we finished up with the networking thing. I ended up meeting my entertainment lawyer there that I used for a couple years, and flew back to Edmonton because we were done our trip. And Michael J. calls me and he's like, I haven't heard a songwriter like you in a really long time. Are you still in LA? And I'm like, I'm not in LA, but you know what? I could fly back. He's like, well, when could you be here? I'm like, when do you want me there? And he's like, well, could you come in the next few days? I'm like, yeah, I could do that. And I literally pulled up a plane and
Shimmer, that's exactly what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I'm talking about. You were ready to do what needed to be done. And that's, man, there are just so many kids that maybe need to hear that, you just sit in your house and, you got tons of music on your computer and you're not releasing any of it. And you're just sitting on it thinking that the record people are going to come to you, or it's just not going to happen. You have to work. If you want something bad enough, you have to work for it and not expect it to just land on your plate, because the music industry nowadays is absolutely not like that. They want almost fully done albums. They want it fully done. They want you to already have a following and all of that. So basically you're working 24/7. Like even with my latest album, Inner Me, that I just released in February, I'm constantly on the internet finding new radio stations to send the album to, and the singles I decide that I want to push out there. And I'm always emailing blogs to try to chat with you and chat with podcasts like you, and pretty much just get the word out that Shimmer Johnson exists, because if you don't do it, nobody's going to know you exist. Well, Shimmer, let me give you an example. I mean, it's working right now. We have always on freerangetexan.net, we've always got that thing there where it says, if you would like to be on our podcast, if you want to be featured on the Free Range Talent File, go ahead, send it in. Let us know about you.
The worst anybody can do is say, no, sorry, I don't feel your music's ready.
And all of a sudden, Shimmer Johnson and Michael Sean are talking, and when we heard your stuff and knew a little more about you, we knew that there would be a good blog article there, and you would be a great interview, and you've got, of course, some great music. Speaking of which, let me just throw in one more time that Toy Soldier song. The video is in your article there on our blog at freerangetexan.net.
Yeah, I did up a little lyric video. That's also good for your viewers to hear, too.
We're going to also have a link to your website on our blog, so people, that you can go there and get in touch with Shimmer's web presence, and lots of other good information, too. More details, more pictures. Holy smoke. Anyway, so now I want to ask you a question about a song that you've got off of your album, Want Me to Be. Tell me,
Yes.
Tell me the backstory on that.
Honestly, Want Me to Be, I wrote when I was 21 years old, like a long time ago. So I always wanted to release it. And originally, I was really in the Backstreet Boys phase when they came back out in like the early 2000s.
The Backstreet Boys phase.
I want to write a Backstreet Boys song. So I wrote Want Me to Be with Corey and my friend Jay, and we sat down and wrote that. And I was really big into, like I said, Backstreet Boys, Avril Lavigne. So I was like, I want a poppy Backstreet Boys song. So I wrote that, and we never ended up releasing it because back then I was given really bad advice by people saying that, if you release stuff, then major labels aren't going to sign you and all this other stuff. So I have over 500 songs. I've never released half of them. Like literally the stuff that I've released is only like 0.1% of what I actually have. I have like a full country album. I have a full rock album.
Well, I'll tell you what we'd like to do. We'd like to go ahead and share that with our listeners, the Want Me to Be. And and man,
my Backstreet Boys song.
Shimmer, first of all, we'd love to have you back down the line. We want to know what's going on with you. And you got a lot of stuff that you talk about that you can clearly see you have been working the music business. Absolutely.
And just everybody out there needs to know that they just have to do it and, go and perform. Go and get your stuff up there. Release it. It's really easy to release stuff nowadays. So.
It is. All right, so here she is, everybody. This is one of her singles, Want Me to Be. This is Shimmer Johnson on the Free Range Texan podcast.
I'm sitting here all by myself, thinking of nobody else but you. I tell myself that I was blind, I couldn't see the other side, but now I know I'm lost without you. I can't see. I lost my pride, but in the end I will survive to see the day you said goodbye, to see you walk right out my life. Is there a way to change your mind? No more mistakes to hide my pride, to hide my pride. I can't see, I can't breathe, I can't be that you want me to be. I can't dream, I can't seem to be anything you want me to be. I can't see, I can't breathe, I can be most anything, and I can laugh and I can cry. I can make you feel. I can't see, I can't breathe, I can't be anything that you want me to be. I can't dream, I can't seem to be anything you want me to be. I can't make you fall apart. Make
been listening to the Free Range Talent File. If you'd like more information about our guest, just go to our website at freerangetexan.net. Also, submissions to be interviewed on the Free Range Talent File should be sent to our website at freerangetexan.net. I know what you're thinking. What if? That can be dangerous, thinking, what if? Like, what if you produced your own podcast? Well, now comes the if-onlys. If only you think I had a partner. Someone that listened to you enough to understand what's in your head and maybe even what's in your heart. Then they would understand the look and the feel of your podcast. Partners you could trust to edit exactly what you want in our state-of-the-art digital studio. Complete with your own non-published music and just the right amount of backup production for intros and outros. And we would even use portable microphones to help us make you the center of your podcast content. And you could do this from anywhere in the world. After your final edit of each episode, we would then upload your presentation to every podcast platform in the world through a universal hub that is the world's most successful of its kind. And it can all be simpler than you think. And promoting your podcast is something we would be glad to teach you. In fact, we are the producers of podcasts like the Free Range Texan and a number of others as well. Whether it's corporate or personal, that's what partners are for. I mean, if you're wondering, what if? Just go to freerangetexan.net and then click on the What If You Produced Your Own Podcast banner. You see, it's simpler and costs less than you think. That's freerangetexan.net and look for the What If You Produced Your Own Podcast or a Team PR banner. After all, what if? Let's talk about it. Skimming across the surface of the World Wide Web comes an intrepid podcast for those rolling on roads less traveled. Heroes and Heroines File, the Free Range Talent File, the Unexplained File, Ain't Love Grand File, the Free Range Texan News Network, Michael Sean's Campfire, Worldwide Digital Stereo, coming right out of God's country. You're riding with the Free Range Texan, the best little podcast in Texas. Hello, this is Michael Sean. Sometimes I feel like I've waited all month just to get right here at our campfire. There's cowboy coffee over there. Make yourself at home. Abilene was the wildest cattle town in the West, where saloon keepers wore gold nuggets as big as hickory nuts and kept shotguns behind the bar, where at any time a drunken cowboy might ride his horse right into the saloon, pull out his pistol, and began firing. The main street of Abilene was Texas Street, which led right off the dreary prairie and straight down a glittering path of drinking and gambling houses on both sides of the street. The Alamo, Lone Star, Longhorn, Bull's Head, and more. When the Cowboys rode into Abilene after a good 3 months of driving a herd across the prairie, they found themselves in glamorous surroundings where it was easy to raise Cain and blow their pay. For the gamblers, there was a rich harvest in this Sin City, and it wasn't unusual to see a hatful of gold and silver spread out on any of the gambling tables. The town fathers, in all of their wisdom, hired Tom Smith, a former New York City policeman, as their first marshal. But he was murdered long before he could tame the town. It became clear they should hire a fast draw named Wild Bill Hickok to be their new marshal. In the late 1860s, Abilene was running wild. City ordinances were posted and just as quickly torn down. The Cowboys rode through town shooting at the no shooting posters on the doors. Then the town tried to build a jail. The Cowboys demolished it. The first marshal had made a good start, but now he was dead. Abilene was without a chief of police, and the town's reputation was so bad that no one actually wanted the job. But then, Wild Bill Hickok presented himself. The mayor and the town council were actually glad to hire him. Hickok was reputed to be the best gunman in all of the West and was a crack shot with both hands at the same time. However, the town was not entirely happy with the man they considered a desperado. Tall and strikingly handsome, his appearance always well-dressed, he attracted attention, more than just a little jealousy from most of the men in the town. Wild Bill continued his predecessor's custom of having the Cowboys park their weapons when they went into the saloons. And generally, the fear of his 2 pistols kept most of the roughnecks in line. Bill's office was in the Alamo Saloon, and he employed an assistant or 2 to patrol the streets and watch for trouble. Now, Hickok had made some enemies as he enforced the law, and at the same time, his growing reputation brought various gunmen eager for a shootout. At least 8 thugs had come to Abilene to try it, while Bill disarmed 7 of them, caused them to lose their courage, you see. The 8th, however, did not. And that led to Wild Bill Hickok having a very ghostly encounter. It happened in just this way. One night, Wild Bill left his headquarters at the Alamo Saloon and walked down the street toward the Merchant's Hotel when he saw a gunman coming out of the shadows and starting to draw on him. Wild Bill drew and fired his pistol. The bandit dropped to the ground where he lay dead. But with his last breath, he lifted his head and swore, "Wild Bill, I'm gonna get even with you." Nobody knew the gunman's name, and he was buried at Boot Hill in an unmarked grave. The very next night, Hickok was walking down the street, and just as he approached the Merchant's Hotel, he saw a gunman in the shadows, while suddenly time began to turn like slow motion. Wild Bill had the feeling that he had already seen this scene before. The gunman even looked like the same man he had shot the night before. The gunman pulled his .44. At the last moment, Wild Bill managed to break his trance and draw his guns and blast away, expecting for the first time in his life that he was going to be shot, but all he heard were his own pistols. It was odd. He had an amazed look on his face. He was still standing, and so was the man he had shot. The figure began to just dissolve and drift away like a puff of smoke. Wild Bill headed back for the Alamo. He downed a couple of shots of whiskey and told no one what had happened. Then, the very next night was a night in history that will be remembered as the night that Wild Bill made his tragic mistake. His archenemy, the gambler, Phil Coe, who had sworn to kill him, led a game of ruffians down the street and then stopped outside the door of the saloon. Coe fired his pistol. Hickok rushed to the door and found Coe standing there arrogantly. Coe said, "If you want my gun, Hickok, you'll have to take it." Then he went for his pistol. Hickok drew both guns and fired. Coe's shot went wild, but the ball from one of Hickok's guns penetrated Coe's stomach, and he fell to the street mortally wounded. But at the same instant, Hickok saw a figure approaching through the shadows, ready to draw. Wild Bill fired with his left hand, and almost instantly, he was sure he had seen the same awful face for the third time. The figure slumped down. It was not the gunman he had shot, but rather his fellow peace officer and friend, Mike Williams. When he saw what he had accidentally done, Hickok was shocked. He sadly made arrangements for his friend's funeral, sent money to his mother, and purchased a fine casket in which he shipped the body to his home and family in Kansas City. And it's often said that this is how a gunman's ghost tricked Wild Bill Hickok into killing the wrong man, thus getting his evil revenge. Not long after that, the town fathers urged Wild Bill to turn in his badge and move on. The gunman's ghost was never seen again, but the grave is still there up on Boot Hill. It's just another tale from our campfire. I'm Michael Shawn. Thanks for joining us. Adios, my friends. About that campfire. Oh, man. Oh, everybody. You know, we have such a good time doing this podcast. We thank you for joining us. If you get the chance, please, would you subscribe to our podcast, whether it be on YouTube or on any of your podcast players? We would really appreciate that. It helps us out a lot. Big thank you to Shimmer Johnson. Shared a little slice of her life and her music, too. Again, we want to remind y'all that you can go to freerangetexan.net and go to the blog when you get there. Find out a lot more about Shimmer Johnson and her website. All of that, of course, is freerangetexan.net. And then click on the blog. We're already working on episode 61. Comes out August 1st here on your favorite podcast player and YouTube as well. Thanks for listening, y'all. Get in the pickup, Foxy. Take 'em home, sweetie pie.
Thank y'all for listening to the Free Range Texan podcast, produced at 18PR Studios, out yonder in West Texas, with our host, who's been voted the hardest working man in podcasting, Michael Sean. Feedback or submissions to our program can be submitted on our website, freerangetexan.net. That's freerangetexan.net. This is Sweetie Pie, on behalf of Michael Sean and the crew here in Studio A, where we're all looking forward to spending time with you on our next episode of the Free Range Texan podcast. Y'all come back now, you hear?
An 18PR production. End transmission.
That's all. Can we go now, Dad?